So I've just got one slide at the beginning to explain who we are for people that might not be familiar with our specialist group. Great, thanks very much. So Australasian Paleontologists is a specialist group of GSA. We publish a number of publications, so Nomen Nudum comes out every year. That is a directory of Australasian paleontologists. We publish 4 issues a year of our Tringa, a journal of Australian paleontology, and we also have a memoir series for larger manuscripts. It wasn't me. I'll keep going. So to get to the crux of the slide, the reason that we are here at the WA Division Award ceremony is because at the moment the Committee for Australasian Paleontologists is all WA based. So the specialist group, Australasian Paleontologists, has a 4-year committee term and it rotates around states. So last year at AGCC we had the election of a new committee, and we started our term then and we go through to 2022. So we're all WA based. I am serving on the committee along with Kenny, who's here from the West Australian Museum, and not here tonight but send their apologies, is John Gorder and Dan Mantle. So we award a number of awards, but tonight we're here for the Robert Etheridge Jr Medal, and this is one of our most prestigious specialist group awards. So the medal is named after Robert Etheridge Jr. Etheridge was educated at the Royal School of Mines in London before coming to Australia in the 1860s. His career included positions at the Natural History Museum in London, but also the Geological Survey of Scotland and Australian Geological Surveys in Victoria and New South Wales. He also spent a part of his career at the Australian Museum, where he was director for a number of those. Etheridge was a giant of the Australian paleontology community, much as Kath is tonight, leaving a legacy of some published 350 papers dealing with fossils from many areas of Australia. Previous recipients of the medal include Professor Bruce Runniger and Dr. Thomas Rich. This is only the 3rd time that our specialist group has awarded the medal, so it is with great pleasure that the committee awards the Robert Etheridge Jr Medal tonight to Kath Gray. Kath has more than 45 years' experience studying fossils. During her career at the Geological Survey of Western Australia, Kath worked extensively on Precambrian stromatolites, microfossils and other fossils, and in particular for their use in biostratigraphy. She has collected stromatolites at more than 1,000 West Australian localities, representing most of the geological record. As well as this, she has examined organic walled microfossils from many Proterozoic successions. During her career, Kath Gray produced more than 100 peer-reviewed scientific publications and 200 Geological Survey of Western Australia paleontology reports, and named more than 100 new taxa. Kath has spent her career working on some controversial structures using field studies, comparative morphology, and high-resolution microscopy. In 1990, she established the biogenicity of the contentious mid-Mesoproterozoic string of beads fossils. She has worked extensively on Neoproterozoic phytoplankton, studying drill core sections Australia-wide, and has produced a zonation scheme for the Ediacaran period that is now recognised internationally and has applications for petroleum and mineral exploration throughout Australia. This was probably one of the highlights on her nomination for the Gibb Maitland Medal, which she was previously awarded. Her results indicate a significant biotic change in Ediacaran assemblages that coincided with the Ackermann impact and preceded diversification of the Ediacaran fauna. The resulting Australia-wide zonation was published as a 400-page monograph on the Ediacaran palynology of Australia that documents the systematics of about 60 new fossil species and has global application. She has also produced an Australia-wide correlation scheme for the Tonian and Cryogenian periods by integrating palynology, microfossils and stromatolite biostratigraphy with isotope chemostratigraphy in conjunction with several colleagues. In 1997, Kath was one of the discoverers of some of the most convincing evidence of early life. This is Kath pictured here, photographing conical stromatolites of the Strelley Pool Formation in the Pilbara region. These 3.45 billion-year-old structures provide an analogue for fossil life on Mars and have since been studied by several international teams. For the larger part of Kath's career, she was the Chief Paleontologist at the Geological Survey of Western Australia. In this position, she was tasked with providing biostratigraphic and paleo-environmental information on Precambrian successions throughout Western Australia. This position required collaboration with geoscientists from regional mapping and exploration geology branches of the Geological Survey, and collaboration with national and international researchers in a variety of fields. Kath's results were used in the compilation of geological maps and reports and contributed enormously to the state's resource potential. She authored over 200 paleontology reports whilst at the Geological Survey with us. Part of Kath's studies involved the examination of modern environments to help interpret ancient microbialites. She also administered on any matters that dealt with fossils and advised on policy relating to fossils within the state. She managed the Geological Survey of Western Australia's paleontological collection and continues to compile a Precambrian fossil database today. But what many would probably credit Kath with most is her enormous contribution she had in sharing her knowledge with all of her peers and people working with her. Kath has participated in hundreds of field trips and shared her knowledge and expertise globally to anyone who got in touch with her. She is a wealth of information of West Australian geology, but also in the fields of Precambrian palynology and microbialite studies. Although she supervised countless numbers of students and shared her knowledge for the advance of these sciences throughout her career. Although officially retired since 2013, Kath has still been working on geological survey projects and provides advice to a range of geoscientists from government, academia and industry. She continues to compile scientific publications and has authored a handbook on microbialite methods that will be published as the GSA WA bulletin later this year. So it's my greatest pleasure to ask Kenny, our Chair of Australasian Paleontologists, to present Kath with the Robert Etheridge Jr Medal. I'll just take a photo for our Facebook page. Thanks. Okay. And I think Kath has a short, something short to say.
Thanks, Heidi. Actually, Simon's speech followed pretty much my entry to Australia as well. And Heidi's covered quite a lot of my history, but anyway, I've got the wrong glasses on, but I can see it's having printed it large. So, I'm delighted and honoured to receive this Lifetime Achievement Award from the Australian Paleontologist Specialist Group, especially as it's named after one of the pioneers of Australian fossil studies, Robert Etheridge Jr. Like me, he was born in the UK but spent much of his working life in Australia, mainly employed by state geological surveys. Like me, he must have found the wealth of Australian material exciting and amazing, and in dire need of description. He was my age, 72, when he died of pneumonia in 1920. I'm all too conscious that the award named after him is for lifetime achievement, and that in my case is very timely. I'm on borrowed time after being diagnosed with esophageal cancer in April last year, and at that time being given a prognosis of 3 months. I'm still here thanks to a clinical trial, but the terminal diagnosis reminds me that I've done most of what I'll be able to achieve in my lifetime. It focuses my mind on what I have contributed and on what still needs doing. Talking about my own achievements isn't something that comes naturally to me, but when I look back over what I have done while preparing this speech, I realised there was no chance of fitting even a brief summary into 15 minutes, so I'm only going to mention a few highlights. Firstly, I suppose staying in one job as a paleontologist with the Geological Survey of Western Australia from March 1971 until my retirement in January 2013 rather. No, 2013, I should have got my glasses out. Apart from the 3.5 years I spent working on my PhD at Macquarie University, is something of an achievement in this day and age. I served under 7 different directors, and I certainly saw a lot of changes. When I first joined GSA WA, women were not allowed to do field work. According to the director of the day, Joe Lord, this was because there were no trees north of the 26th parallel. When finally I got into the field, I discovered that spinifex provided just as much cover for toilet requirements for women as did trees. Finally, in 1975, no one else was available or interested in doing a project on stromatolites. I kept quiet about the fact that I didn't know what a stromatolite was, and heading bush, the first of many trips. That first field trip to the Bangor Basin introduced me to the excitement of working on Precambrian fossils, and because WA is largely covered by rocks older than 500 million years, opened up a huge arena for exploration. Since then, I've been slowly working my way through most of the sedimentary basins of WA, with minor excursions interstate and overseas. I've visited more than half of the state's 1 to 250,000 scale map sheets. I've probably described at least 100 new fossil species and written about 100 publications and several hundred internal reports. My work was mostly directed at providing the mapping teams with ages and environmental interpretations of the various stratigraphic units they were working on, but I did make some noteworthy discoveries along the way. Among the more significant I would include my development of the stromatolite biostratigraphy for the Proterozoic. Despite scepticism from some researchers, I can demonstrate that it works, and my conclusions are backed up by a database with more than 4,500 records. My study of Neoproterozoic palynology began as part of my PhD project and published as a monograph in 2005 as another major achievement. I proposed a zonation of the late Neoproterozoic of Australia that should assist both hydrocarbon and mineral exploration, and I also found evidence suggesting that a radical change in the biota might be the result of a large asteroid impact, the Ackermann impact event. I have since expanded my biostratigraphy to include most of the Neoproterozoic and selected parts of the Mesoproterozoic. In addition, my palynostratigraphy and stromatolite biostratigraphy schemes can be applied across wide parts of Australia and are consistent with the lithostratigraphic and chemostratigraphic correlations. So biostratigraphy does work in the Precambrian. My study of the late Mesoproterozoic string of beads it was also another important piece of work. It's, as Heidi showed you, the fossils are rather enigmatic. It's still unclear whether they are sedimentary structures or the earliest animal traces, or something in between. I'm still backing my original interpretation as seaweed-like organisms. Another important contribution was my investigation of the 3.4 GA old conical stromatolites in the Strelly Pool Formation of the Pilbara, with Hans Hoffman from Canada and Arthur Hickman, based on an original discovery by Alec Trendle. They're probably not quite the oldest fossils known on Earth, just by a small margin, but they are still the most convincing evidence discovered to date that life had evolved into complex forms at an early stage of Earth history. It's difficult to produce laminated cones abiogenically, and they also have an axial zone structure similar to those found in living examples of conical stromatolites. I also did a study with Kenishiro Sugitani of Nagoya University, which identified highly complex microfossils in the Mount Grant and Strelly Pool formations. Of course, a big achievement has been finally completing the handbook for the study and description of microbialites, which is based on some 45 years of collecting data and images of microbialites by myself and Stan Aramik at Santa Barbara University. This will provide geologists with the means of consistently describing microbialites and will be copiously illustrated. It's in the final stages of editing, as Heidi mentioned, and should be published by GSWA, I hope, later this year. I was also active in protection of the state's fossil heritage and its geological sites. This is a tangled web of legislation that's very difficult to navigate, but something had to be managed. Part of it involved in educating the public about fossils, and this was also one of Etheridge's interests. Unfortunately, one thing that didn't come to fruition was a proposal to set up a tourist viewing area, the Dawn of Life Trail, so the public could share the excitement of seeing the oldest fossils on Earth. The plan was for a car park, visitors trail and informative signage, just a short distance from the Marble Bar Nullagine Road, which would divert attention away from the sites of critical scientific significance north of Marble Bar. Although we came close, we never quite managed to get the site set up, and it's one of my great regrets to see some of these extremely rare fossils now being sold as jewellery on the internet. Another disappointment has been the decline of paleontology and biostratigraphy as a discipline, a sad loss to science and a subject I could discuss for hours but won't. Of course, I could not have managed any of my achievements alone, and there are indeed many people to thank, too many to name individually. Among those I would like to single out are Alex Ritchie, Roger Neves and Charles Downey from my BSc and MSc days at Sheffield University, who interested me in paleontology and managed to instill some basic principles. John Backhouse, who's here tonight, my former colleague in the paleontology section, who somehow put up with my vagaries for nearly 30 years. Dennis G, who supported both me and my scientific endeavours, especially at some difficult times when it counted most. Malcolm Walter, who introduced me to interpreting stromatolites, and who together with John Beavers supervised my PhD. Sarah Martin, also here tonight, who took over managing the GSWA fossil collection and who has been sorting out some of the mess I left when I retired. And Heidi Allen, who is expanding my stromatolite biostratigraphy scheme. Also, all those who ventured on field trips with me, despite my reputation for being accident-prone. And those who co-authored papers, some of them more than once, which says much about their patience and tolerance. I'd like to thank all of my colleagues and many friends at GSWA and elsewhere over the years. A glance at my publication list and the breadth of topics covered demonstrates the extent of the stimulating work environment they provided. Many of them have re-emerged in the last year to help me deal with my illness. Their assistance is much appreciated, both then and now. I am also grateful for the grant system that saw me through university. Higher education would not have been an option for me if it hadn't been free. So I remain a strong supporter of free education. I regret that I don't have time to share details of my numerous adventures and misadventures with you tonight. There was the ex-alcoholic field assistant who hit the bottle again after 2 weeks out with me. An encounter with a 2-metre-long king brown snake. My long history of vehicle breakdowns in awkward places. Getting trapped by landslides in China. Dodging landmines in Mauritania. And the time a bush hotel informed me that they didn't let rooms to single females in case they were on the game. Having in my field gear today, would you really mistake me for a hooker? I can safely say I've lived through interesting times. I guess the most important thing is that I've survived, at least so far, and through it all managed to retain my enthusiasm, passion for science, and I hope my sense of humour. I know there's still a huge amount of work to finish writing up, and vast areas of the state that have hardly been studied. Sadly, I will have to leave much of this to others. Australia is a great and exciting place to work, as Robert Etheridge Jr discovered. I hope those just embarking on their careers will be able to look back on their lifetime achievements with as much satisfaction as I can. Perhaps my biggest achievement is to be able to say that I have very few regrets and that my life has been such enormous fun. Thank you.